Hi, my name's Angela Prusa, and I want to just start this session by just gifting a offering, actually, to the spirits of this land that have welcomed us here, an offering to the amazing earth medicines that we are honoring and talking about throughout these next few days here at the Breaking Convention. Gratitude to the rains, the waters, the sunshine, the air that nourishes us daily and keeps us alive. And immense gratitude for our bodies, our cells, our organs, who know exactly what to do at every moment to keep us alive, our spirits and our minds. And immense gratitude to the indigenous and to their amazing wisdom that they've shared so freely. I've been really privileged to learn from the Wirarica nation, a Mexican indigenous nation, a shamanic culture that has held on to their traditions for thousands of years that have never been colonized. So they've held on to their shamanic traditions, and they have a really beautiful and close relationship with the natural world around them. And one of the biggest lessons that I have learned from them that we apply in the way that we work daily with these earth medicines is being in reciprocity, being in right relationship, having a respectful relationship with these plants, with these fungi, with these herbs, with these flowers, and really truly understanding that they are beings that are alive, that they are beings within themselves, that they have character, that they have personality, and that they have immense wisdom, more so than we have. And so this is the way that we work. This is the container that we create with these medicines, supporting people. We honor these medicines. We bring offerings to these medicines. We infuse that container in which we support people with prayer and with really good intentions. And for that knowledge, I'm really, really grateful. And so I actually want to give an example of how that translates into our daily life and the way we work. We have, for example, one of the people we support has a son who has a brain tumor. And every month we send her a bottle of 20% CBD with frankincense. And we were away, so a friend had to make up this bottle. Same recipe, same CBD, same strength, same frankincense. And a few days after receiving the bottle, we got a text message from the mother saying, I can't give this medicine to my son because the integrity and the energy of it feels totally different. He's not responding in the same way as he usually does. And she asked me, has someone else made the bottle up? And I found this really amazing. It was privy to the way that we work because we have a deep relationship with the plants that we work with. And we have a honoring that happens on a daily basis when we sit down and work with these earth medicines and create that container for the people we support with. And it always reminds me of the experiments that were done with the water, where the water was being spoken to in an angry way, in a negative way, and then the water was being spoken to in a beautiful way, in a positive way, and prayers were infused. And the crystals in that water, the structure of that water itself changed. And this is how I see the work that we do. And we want to inspire people to have that same relationship with the medicines that they take, whether it's homeopathy that you're taking, or it is a pain pill that you're taking that's a pharmaceutical substance. That relationship of when you're putting something into your body and you're creating a conscious and meaningful relationship, for me, that creates a sacred container where magic can happen with these beautiful earth medicines.
Indeed. And from that place of our connection, of our calling, our listening, our commune with the medicines that we provide and the way that we do it, we aim to empower people on their own health journey. We are not doing anything. We want people to be empowered. And the first place of empowerment is to trust where you're at, to trust what your health is telling you, even if it feels like there is a dysfunction, even if it feels like it's uncomfortable and something is happening to you, to trust. You know, that place of crisis is your gift to work with. And if you can come from there and you start building, cultivating that trust, then you can go into a quiet space of listening. How does the path look ahead that I can travel on to a place of wholeness? And there we can listen to the calling. Is there a calling for an earth medicine? And the calling, we've heard this many times in the psychedelic space, there is a calling for medicine. How does that show up? Sometimes the spirits of these lovely, beautiful earth medicines show up in dreams, clearly, or sometimes you just keep hearing about it until there is this knowing, a deep knowing, cultivating a gnosis in your body of, I must commune with it. So already the relationship has started before there is an interaction. You know, how can that even be measured by science? You know, and that's not to say that science doesn't have its place, but to be working together with knowing that there is a spirit, there is something that is happening before we even consume this medicine. And so then when we go into that relationship of our healing journey, just like any good relationship, there needs to be trust. There needs to be surrender of what might come up. What happens when we interact with these powerful, beautiful medicines is that usually there is a discomfort. It reveals to you what is blocking your path to wholeness. And in that revelation, there is fear sometimes. There is crisis. There is sometimes, unfortunately, psychosis or a breaking open. And if we can keep that container of trust held, that womb space, that space of whatever is happening in here is supposed to be happening. If we can trust it and gather our tools, use our breath to work through it, then we receive the gifts. And that reminds me of birth. You know, that you know, for those of us that are lucky to have given birth or have gone through that process of, I just can't do it anymore, until that point where, okay, we've moved through and we get gifted the baby on the other side. You know, it is much like that. And to do that safely, we need that container of trust. We need that midwife there. We need that doula there. We need that space that's being said, it's okay, what you're going through is perfect. And then through that, through your own trust, not that fear that raises up inside of you, and fear it induces adrenaline, and adrenaline, you want to run away from everything, and actually it's by sitting, it's by appreciating the discomfort and knowing that it can melt away into a new you, into a new self, into an emergence of a healing.
The microdosing, the container around microdosing that goes beyond the science, I think, is something really important to mention.
Yeah, you know, science says that microdosing may not be enough to create any significant outcome, but when we place that container that we talk about, that womb space, that trusting, the things that can happen is beyond imaginable. We can access feelings, we can access memories that is that block that we talked about, that suppression, that repression, that inability to move through that block is what stops us from getting through to the other side. And so when we're able to access feelings that are sat in our body, in our cells, and the longer they stay there, that's when it can turn into disease. And we don't want that to happen. So ultimately, these beautiful microdosing beings allow us to go feel. And I've experienced many people saying, oh, I've just spent the last week feeling angry. I don't think this microdosing is working. It's like, well, where is that anger coming from? Is it sat within? And when we see it and we are told, actually, it's okay to experience that anger, we're releasing it out and slowly emptying out our vessel from things that no longer need to be in there and authentically come into a place of wholeness and presence. And from that place, we can start to step into our purpose and see how we can be of service to others as well. I have a story to share about my dad and the trust of the process of the vessel and the medicine. My dad's relationship and I has always been incredibly difficult. He was quite aggressive and manipulative and to my mum and sister and myself. And in this last 10 years or so, he's been diagnosed with dementia and Alzheimer's. And this might seem like an unfortunate event and can be looked at as very sad, but it has been incredibly beautiful and healing. I've provided him with some microdosing, and in these last years, he's sat there, not being able to move very much and not always coherent thought. But occasionally there'll be these insights and these memories in which he expresses an apology. He expresses an understanding that he may not have acted right. And slowly in these pockets of time over these last years, I can see my mother healing. I can see my sister healing. I can see myself healing. There is this objective seeing of, wow, you want to put your wrongs right in this space. And it wouldn't have been able to happen if he wasn't sedentary, if he wasn't sat there, not in distraction, just absolutely quiet and just coming to him and us being able to hold him in that phase. And this difficult thing of Alzheimer's that is a destructive disease has become a healing tool for our family. And this is where I come to this place of, when we are gifted these diseases, these dysfunctions, they can also be huge gifts if we work with them in a conscious and right way, with the right earth medicines or the right tools, the right holistic ability, because it needs to be holistic, all of it. We can't heal the body if the mind is in distress, and we cannot heal the mind if the spirit is in terror. And if we're able to look at all aspects of it and know how to hold it, then we're able to move through. We're able to see these dysfunctions, these diseases as gifts to coming to our wholeness. And seeing my dad, who can hardly move and can't always put a whole sentence together, knowing that he's going to leave this earth, having healed a lot of what he created in his times that he was able to move and that he was able to be who he thought he was.
I think this is for us in our work of, I think for me, it's a really important element of holding in this renaissance of psychedelics that is really medicalized. I think having, as someone holding that container or as someone supporting people, I think having that relationship with the plants is really important, to be able to understand empathically from a visceral perspective of knowing what people are going through when they are in that state, knowing the process that, you know, is taking place is a really important factor, because it creates a really safe container. The previous speaker was really amazing in his points. You know, there's the medical systems which are so cut off from that process. And this is, I think, where the grassroots and where the mystical and the sacred really has a lot to offer and a lot of potential if we can work together, because we come from a background that is without any constraints. So we are able to have really deep and meaningful relationships with these plants, and we can relate that to creating safe containers for people to access these medicines and to support them on these journeys with the medicines. And so we really want to inspire people to have relationships with these earth medicines, to see them as the alive beings that they are, full of wisdom.
And to honor each personality in each different way that they can unlock a healing. And, you know, scientists may say that they are compounds or structures, but they also have personalities and tools in which to get and unlock that specific mechanism.
We have 5 minutes.
We have 5 minutes.
Yeah, any last thoughts, any last words?
Yeah, I just don't want to go off on another tangent.
Do you have a little bit of time?
Okay. Yeah, and no, I don't want to go off on a tangent.
So I think for me, essentially, a dear friend and actually a chair of this panel reminded me to ask the question, what makes good medicine? And I think that's one of the wisdoms that, you know, is so important in these spaces. And that's why it's so important in these spaces to have all these different perspectives, but also really to have like indigenous representation and knowledge present, because that's where that wisdom comes from, of being in right relationship with the earth, being in right relationship with the elements, being in right relationship with these medicines.
And with yourself, and with yourself,
ourselves,
trusting yourself.
and with our communities. And I think that's really important, rather than trying to heal in these vacuums and the focus being just on ourselves and how can we heal and what do we need. It's like, how do we do this as a community, but as a web of an ecosystem, keeping in mind that we need healthy rivers and healthy water and healthy plant species, and healthy frog species, so that we can all thrive. And we heal a lot better when we heal in community and everything is in balance. So also being really mindful of that when we consume these medicines, that, because we have money, so we are able to take part and consume all these earth medicines, but really keeping at the back of our mind always the question, what is good medicine and how can we show up, to be in balance with these medicines and in balance with the natural world and in balance with the indigenous communities that this knowledge comes from. And also, how do we show up for the communities who are not able to sit here and speak about this safely because of the color of their skin, because prosecution works differently for people, or for communities of color than it does for white people. And I think all those parts make up of how to be in good relationship with the medicines and how to, just cultivate that cycle of reciprocity, of balance, of respect and honoring. Have we run out? We have run out of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening.
Wow, that really brought us to ground. We've got 10 minutes for questions. I'm going to ask the first question. I'd love to hear just really practically, somebody's set up in a microdosing regime. How do you apply practically? What does that look like for somebody in terms of the advice they're given of like what to do with those microdoses imbued in the approach that you're taking?
Shall we both answer it? You can go first and I'll go.
Yeah, firstly is to come into a relationship with it as we talked about before, to remember that the medicine is not happening to you. It's not healing you. You have to come into a relationship with it, step forward, listen to it, listen to yourself, come into a place of knowing that you're working together to come to a place of homeostasis and clearing and relief, and that process is not always easy, and to not think that we are coming from an angle of when we microdose, we're coming into heightened productivity and creativity that has been talked about so much in Silicon Valley, that sometimes we need to unpack and sometimes we need to go a bit deeper into what's laying inside of us, and to expect that and to surrender and trust to that process. So having a real understanding of what can be expected is one thing. We've also had people coming who have microdosed before, and having spoken about what to expect has completely changed their outcome of actually microdosing within a container with their own medicine, but having a container that explains the whole beautiful spectrum of what to expect when we're doing that.
And also, the way that we work with all the earth medicines that we work with is making people aware of, that microdose that you are going to be putting in your mouth. Like, that is a spirit, that is a alive being. So welcome that with love, welcome that into your body in a really respectful way and create a relationship with it, honor it, and be really mindful of how you take it with gratitude. Even just the practice of gratitude when taking these medicines is so profound. And as well, the approach that we have, it's not just the body, it's the mind, it's the spirit. And we see this so often. There's people who come with, issues around the body. And we've seen, this is why our talk is called Beyond the Science, because the science out there does not equate, I don't know even if that's a word, English is not my first language, to what we see daily, what people are, the transformations people are going through, and the healings that they are receiving from a simple, tiny, minute microdose.
And to remember that the process is so alive that it's an energetically so intelligent that it will act differently on each person, and it is the relationship with each person that creates the outcome, as opposed to what it is that we are, the compound just there. It is an energetic interaction, and an intelligent one as well. Did that answer?
Hello. Thank you very much for that. That was really a very beautiful lecture and very interesting, and especially very touching about the story with your father as well. So I think my question is, was wanting to get your take and your opinion on the kind of trials and all the very exciting medical trials that are going ahead in Imperial and King's, for example. And what is your take on when the kind of sacredness and that relationship and everything you've been speaking about is kind of removed, albeit in a very nice kind of clinical setting, with the container held, but the kind of sacredness is removed and that relationship with the plant is removed. What, in your opinion, is the consequence of that?
So I think there's a space for everything, but what I also think is really possible is a paradigm change. You know, like we have totally disconnected, and being born and raised in Africa, you know, it's really beautiful for me to see that ritual and sacredness is a part of everyday life. And we can have that even in a medical system. We just need to be willing to create that shift in the paradigm, that change in the paradigm. We can bring the sacredness into daily life. We can bring the sacredness into hospitals. I wanted to, can I get the slideshow to work? I just wanted to show, just in terms of pictures of how we work with, because you can be sitting in that's why, you know, like we have people that come to us who are undergoing chemotherapy, and there's like a huge reluctance and there's a huge fear of it. Is it working? I don't know.
Thank you.
There's a huge reluctance and there's a huge fear, but it's like even in a clinical setting, you know, you can bring your own sacredness to that. You can create a little altar. You can, you know, come with gratitude. You can welcome that.
It doesn't need to look in a specific way. It has to be an internal connection, an internal knowing that this is more than just the clinical picture. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut across you, but yeah, I was just...
Yeah, no, because it's like that experiment with the water. We can create our own sacred container, you know, if it's not present. And I think that's where, you know, talking about it is really important, and being inspired by practices of gratitude. And this is why we support so many people, and that's the one thing that we keep telling people is, you know, create a relationship with that medicine. It doesn't matter whether it's chemotherapy or ibuprofen or whether it's a sacred plant, because you're putting it into your body, and, you know, whatever energy you're putting it into your body changes. You know, we are made up of water. We can change that structure in the body, and it's really powerful, and we can bring the sacred into these clinical trials.
It's the absence of fear that is the most healing part, and creating your own safety within that. As Angela said about chemotherapy, if you're sat there feeling like this is awful, this is toxic for me, this is terrible, that's just as toxic as that.
Thank you for your talk. It might be hard to articulate this question, but I wonder whether if there were representatives from the communities, the indigenous communities that you've worked within, if they were here, what would they want to say to us about what we term as magic or spirits? Would they want a redefinition of those terms, which are so heavily loaded? And is there a sense that we fundamentally misunderstand something about communication with and recognition of sentience in other life forms, whether plant or animal, that are not us? And it is that sentience and animation within the world around us that is the cornerstone, really, of I suppose, these magical communications. Apologies if that's not very sort of coherently put.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel comfortable answering on behalf of the indigenous communities. I just, from, being in a really privileged position of being able to learn from them, I just know that they're, and also from the communities in Africa that I have interactions with, I just know that life, the lessons that I have learned from that wisdom, that they have graciously gifted, is that we are all part of an ecosystem. Everything is alive. We as humans have placed ourselves above it, so it's the same. That's why I'm saying it's the same in clinical trials. This is the substance, and this is what we do with it. But essentially, coming into an understanding that everything is alive. The water is alive. The soil is alive. These earth medicines are alive, and they have way more wisdom than we do. And being in a relationship that is respectful, and being in a relationship of deep listening and understanding. And that's why ritual and healing in community is so important, because it's in a lot of the communities, it's about coming to honor the spirits of the lands. It's about being in devotion to the rain, so that the rain comes to feed the corn. It's in devotion to the community itself. The focus is not on the personal healing. The focus is on the health of the community and the health of the environment, because everything is being seen as sacred, because there's an interconnectedness between the air that we breathe is sacred, and the water that we drink sustains us, and the sun that shines down on us keeps us alive. So it's about being in right relationship with all those elements, with the world around us. And I think this is where in the West the disconnect is, and that devoid feeling comes. And now we're all in clinical settings, sitting by ourselves in rooms, taking these psychedelics, and often the healing that we seek doesn't come because the ritual is lacking, the community is lacking, because it's all interconnected. So that's as far as I can answer your question, because I don't want to answer on behalf of the indigenous.
Thank you so much, Angela and Talin.